Let's go to line number 3 and say good morning to the Liberal Member of Parliament serving the folks of Labrador, Yvonne Jones. Good morning, Yvonne. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing this morning?
Top shelf today, you?
Well, I'm top shelf every day. Unfortunately, there's never a shortage of issues to deal with, no matter what shelf you're on.
No doubt.
And so I'm calling this morning, actually, on a few issues. I haven't talked to you in a little while. But a couple of the things that I wanted to raise is right off the issue around the contracted services for Five Wing Goose Bay. And what's been happening there, as you know, back a few months ago, there was some layoffs or, I guess, reconfiguring of the contract with Serco, who runs the base there, and as a result of it, a number of people were displaced from their jobs. Fortunately, because of retirements and shifting of positions and vacancies and so on, most people were accommodated. At the end of the day, I think they were left with maybe 2 people that still have not had some of those issues resolved. But I guess the bigger picture is the future of Five Wing Goose Bay and what happens there. And in the past 9 years, there has been continuous commitment from the Harper government that have surfaced every election, basically saying that, vote for us, support us, and we will make sure that you get troops. We will make sure that you get an operational plan. We will make sure that you're a designated training base, and so on. So it has been continuous in terms of making commitments in the election. And what I say is, it's instilling fear in workers to try and get favor for government during election time, which is all very political. The realistic situation of what's happening on the ground is none of these commitments have been met. In fact, what we've seen is an extension of services which needed to happen for the protection of the infrastructure that's on the base, as well as the continued operation of services that are there. And over and above that, we have not seen any real additions. The only change we saw was this summer, Goose Bay became designated as one of the training areas for the Canadian Rangers. As you know, they have a specific training facility that is located about 100 kilometers. I think it's actually east of Labrador, of the Goose Bay base, and that's used as a training facility. There's been people coming in using that. The Canadian Rangers have been the largest proponent, so there has been more activity at the base than we've seen in the last little while, and there has been some success in attracting some of the allies to come back there. However, the focus of looking at a long-term mandate and operational requirement for Goose Bay has not been succeeded at this point. So what's happening right now is you're hearing an extension of the contract to 2016 with the option for another 2-year extension up to 2018. And what the federal government line is at this time is that they are going to use this time period to look at the overall operations at Five Wing Goose Bay and what the future requirements are going to be for that base and the utilization of it. So this is where we are right now, but the point of me bringing this out is because of the sheer disappointment that exists in the community at the government's failure to deliver on their commitments for Five Wing, and that is to provide for the full operational requirement of the base.
Yeah, when they tried to find other countries to use it for training or whatever sort of exercises, operations they had, that's one thing. But when we have the availability of our own forces making use of Five Wing Goose Bay, then it's quite another. Yvonne, is this distinctly a case of the federal government wanting to phase out the need and the use of the base, period?
I think the objective of the federal government overall from a national defense perspective is to look at how they can downsize right across the country. Five Wing Goose Bay is not an exception in this. So, over the last number of years, we have seen military bases closed. We've seen operational requirements change. one of the key benefits of Five-Wing Goose Bay is its strategic location. And any operational requirement that is going to be sought or put in place for that base is going to be based around response to the northern regions of the country. So right now, despite what's happening with Russia and the Ukraine and the continuous civil unrest that goes on there, Russia is continuing to exercise its right to have control of the Arctic regions of the world.
Well, that's what makes this hard to understand. Well, we have our own federal government being so forceful in talk anyway about Arctic sovereignty that a base like Five-Wing Goose Bay wouldn't be absolutely mandatory to have up to speed, utilized, modernized for that type of operation, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Exactly, Patty. And, you are seeing that. I'm seeing that. People like Bernie Bulger, whom I talked to again this morning, who works and represents the unionized employees, they see that. Others in Labrador see that, and others across the country. So if we are going to assert our rights in terms of Arctic sovereignty and actually govern and take control of a landmass that belongs to Canada, and we have every right to have intervention into, we need resources to do it. This is a ready-made facility. The resources are there. Well, it needs some modernization. Absolutely. We live in a different era, a very technological era, where a lot of these things can be run directly through Five-Wing Goose Bay, and this is where I want to see the government focusing their energy. It's not happening right now. It needs to happen. This base, in my opinion, is one of the key facilities in terms of the country being able to have any kind of delivery of service and control over the Arctic regions of the world. And if we are serious about doing that, then we need to make sure that we are positioning ourselves and putting the infrastructure in place to make it happen. Unlike a lot of people, I believe there is a great future in Five-Wing Goose Bay. I really believe that as we progress and see changes in terms of how we serve northern regions of the country and how we increase things like search and rescue and assert our rights in Arctic regions, then you're going to see more and more requirements and use of facilities like this. We may have to outweigh the conservative Harper government that's there to make it happen, but most people who understand these issues know that this infrastructure will be a key piece in terms of doing the services that we need to do in the country right now.
Yeah, only if it's kept up. See, that's the trick here, too. There can be a span of time or a lapse of time where that might not be as useful a base as it might be without the upkeep and it being inhabited and modernized and everything that goes with it. Yvonne, you say you have a few topics. Before we run out of time, one more before we go to the break.
Okay, the other issue I wanted to raise is with regard to a tender that just recently came out, retendering a section of the Trans-Labrador Highway between Churchill Falls and Happy Valley Goose Bay. And I'm raising this because it was only, in 2012 that there was a tender put out actually to do that section of road, to have that section of road paved, and basically it said that the work would be completed by 2014. And the contract that was tendered at the time was awarded to Humber Valley Paving. So Humber Valley Paving got the contract in 2012. They were supposed to have completed all the work by 2014. The tender was valued at about $68 million. And what we saw last week was the minister retendering the 60 kilometers of that highway that was not finished. So basically, we have a situation right now where work did not get done. I'm understanding from media reports yesterday that the company Humber Valley Paving has been sold or bought out by another company or something. And here was a section of work on the Trans-Labrador Highway, 60 kilometers, that never got finished last year, and now it's being retendered. So that leaves me with a lot of questions. And that is, why is it being retendered and the work not being completed? Was there a problem with the contractor? Was there a problem with the province? I don't know. I think that people in Labrador deserve to have the answers, and people in the province deserve to have the answers, because, as you know, it costs a lot of money to continue to retender contracts, and, it delays projects and so on. And the other questions that I have, is Humber Valley Paving, the new company or whoever owns this company now, are they going to be able to bid on this contract again? Even though they had failed to complete it when they had it last time, are they going to be able to bid on it again? We know that the contract, I think, is estimated at about $7.3 million to finish some of the work that needs to be done there. So it is a large sum of money. But my concern right now is, why did this section not get done? Why did the contract get taken from Humber Valley Paving and retendered again? And, what is the cost of doing that in terms of financial costs and delays in getting that piece of work finished for the people of Labrador?
Yeah, and I think there's a legitimate question, is whether or not Humber Valley Paving will be allowed to reply to that tender again. I guess it has to do with what were the reasons why it wasn't done in the first place. If there's legitimate reasons why they weren't able to complete it, then there's no reason they shouldn't be allowed to react to this tender again. But they're good questions, Yvonne. There's no doubt about it. I want to see what I can find out. I'll put it in a note immediately to the government and see if I can get some answers to those questions, because they're real and they're important. And retendering, it not only costs me money, it is just the continued issues that face the people of Labrador with, okay, fine, you said you would do it, it didn't get done, so now what's your excuse as to why? So I think it's legitimate, and I'll see what I can find out.
Okay, and the other side of this too, Patty, is that when you get a contract or a tender to do work from the province, there's always a holdback until the job is finished. So I'd like to know as well, was there a holdback on revenue and the company didn't get paid for the work they done, or are they going to be paid for work they didn't do? And I mean, it's very legitimate, because
generally not, but that's not a general issue.
And they didn't get money, they should get paid. But if they didn't do work and there was money held back, well, then they should not get it if they didn't complete the job. So, I think these things need to be addressed, and I would like to hear from the Premier or from the Minister or from someone within the provincial government to tell the people of Labrador why this company had their contract withdrawn, why it's being retendered, what the cost of doing this is, and, what the time frame and delays are now going to be to the people in Labrador. And secondly, can the company bid the contract, and was there money withheld? And if there was, is it going to be paid out even though the job wasn't finished?
Yeah, some of those things I guess the Auditor General would highlight and identify very easily, but fair enough, there's all the questions are legitimate, and I'll find out. Before I let you go, and I'm really late for the break, everyone's already mad at me, but I'm used to that. You have made comments in the past about investments in Labrador, and the numbers that you quote are, for every dollar invested in Labrador by the province, it returns $8 to the province. Where'd you come up with that number? Is there a report that you have that you can forward along so I can see that too? Because that's the crux of the argument facing the folks of Labrador, and what I think is the conversation that's getting some momentum about self-governance and whatnot. So this is a really important issue that you brought forward in the past. Do you have something I can read on that front?
I wish I did, Patty. I'd love to have a study, and I've said if I can ever pull the resources together, I will actually hire someone with the right credentials to actually look very closely and clearly at what the investments are going out of Labrador and coming in.
So where'd you get the number, though?
Where did I get the number? So let me tell you how I got the number. What we did is we look at the budgeting of government, okay? So we look at, first of all, where they're investing money in Labrador on an annual basis. They put out a report sometimes called the Labrador Strategic Plan. In that plan is every single cent of money that gets invested in Labrador, from a school teacher right down to a gallon of lube that's being used in a generator to run power, okay?
Yeah.
So that is all encompassing in their view of everything that goes into Labrador. So that's where you get that number. How do we get the number of what comes out of Labrador? what we did is we sat down. I don't have the thing in front of me now, but it's very much what you would call napkin math, I guess. And you sit down and we looked at, okay, what is coming out of Voisey's Bay in terms of direct royalties, corporate taxation, employee investment into the province, all of those things. We looked at the same for the other mining operations across Labrador. We look at what's being generated through things like the Muskrat Falls project, and then we look at other things in terms of the amounts of money that is paid in generally, like through taxation and through all of these kinds of things. When you sit down and you work it all out on an annual basis and you make a comparison in terms of what gets invested in infrastructure and services and things like that compared to what's going out, you see that it's quite a different ratio. So what the figures that I use, and I'm waiting for someone in the Department of Finance to challenge me, and that's why I'll continue to use it until they do, and give us something substantial that shows us the numbers that they have on their books, because they won't give it to us. They have never released it, not even through FOI, and that is that we continue to say for every $8 that goes to the province, we get about $1 back in investment infrastructure money.
Yeah, and some of those are tough numbers anyway. When you talk about like Muskrat Falls, for instance, the total of the money spent there doesn't all come from the province directly from the Treasury. There's different avenues of how that's spent as well. But I'd love to see that number, because that is the basis.
Resource development that is creating money that is going back to the province.
But some of it's also coming from private investors too, and outside of Muskrat Falls, when we have a lot of different investments that have been made, and so the returns, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. A direct investment dollar from the province is different than a direct investment dollar from a private sector operator, mining and otherwise. So I'd like to see it too, because I think you're right. We've got to get down to the brass tacks of removing some of the emotion and symbolism of unity or lack thereof, and really get into how much money has gone in per capita, where has it been spent, how has it been spent, returns to the province, jobs created, everything that's included in that, because we are soon going to have to face this conversation with some of those real hard numbers, because it's important. We can't have the province break up based on some of the assertions people make and or the emotions associated with, even though I know it's real. I'm from a rural family, so I get it. I know what's going on here. But I just thought I'd ask, because I think that's an important thing we've got to establish once and for all. As usual, always enjoy the conversation, Yvonne. Stay in touch at your convenience. Don't take so long next time.
No, Patty, and just one more second before you go. What you're saying is exactly right. There are meetings ongoing in Labrador right now where there is a lot of talk about separation, but more so talk out of frustration. Labradorians do not have the opportunity to govern ourselves. We never have. We can elect the best people that provide direction, provide vision, and fight for that for the people of Labrador. At the end of the day, it's someone else that always makes the decisions. And this is where Labradorians have become very frustrated. And whether it's listening to the mayor of Hopedale, who says we have a water system that was built in the late 80s, and they wouldn't listen to us when we told them that we were going to have problems with permafrost because of the climate here, and they built it the way they would in St. John's or Corner Brook, and now we have all these problems because everything freezes up. Or it could be issues like where I spoke to the mayor of Goose Bay yesterday, who has a dilapidated swimming facility, a curling club that's ready to close down, no recreational facilities, but right across the river, 25 kilometers away, for a temporary project like Muskrat Falls, there's a recreation center going in. And why wouldn't that be put in the community or somewhere close to the community where the community could access it and use it as well? So it's continuous small decisions, not always the big decisions, but a combination of both that really frustrates the people of Labrador when they have to drive over gravel roads and potholes, when they have to do all of these things. They have no adequate ferry service. It costs a fortune to get in and out by air, and it goes on and on and on.
It goes on and on, but it's also some of the overlap concerns that people in rural Newfoundland and the island have too, isn't it? I mean, and that's the thing here. We all face the same issues with how we elect and the services we get in return. Yvonne, I'm so late getting to the break that I'm going to be fired.
They won't fire How are you, Patty? You're doing a great job.
I appreciate the call. Take care, Yvonne.
Okay,
bye-bye. Yvonne Jones, Liberal Member of Parliament, serving the folks of Labrador. Lots of stuff there for your digestion and conversation. You want to talk about it? Just give us a call. We're taking a break and then we're coming back.